Welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 78. Here I am in California. This is my first show since taking my new job at Team Solo Mid as their coach. And sorry about the delay. It's been about 6 weeks, I think, since my last episode. Maybe 4 weeks, hopefully. And there's a kind of a backlog of questions in my inbox, as well as now I am doing the show live on Twitch. So you can come onto the stream and ask questions there, and I'll throw them into the show. I'm going to start by trying to get through my backlog, so I might do 5-10 questions for the show and the next one, and then I will have a behind-the-scenes kind of clip on YouTube where you can see all the questions from the stream that I'm able to get to today, and appreciate everybody who's tuning in. Eventually we'll get a normal time and schedule for this, so we can be kind of like Sean Plott, Day 9 TV, only League of Legends style. All right, let's get started. First question is from Anonymous. What are the correct methods to becoming more consistent? Okay, so consistency is kind of you have the probability hump that goes up and down, so your performance right in the middle. A lot of people look at their best performances and they think, how do I get that? And the answer is, that's on the upper end of the probability curve. So if you want to get that, you got to move the whole statistical curve over. And what you're doing consistently is probably what you are consistently doing or consistently good at. So you're just not good enough to do the better stuff consistently. So you have to eliminate the junky stuff and do more of the better stuff, which means you improve the quality of your training and you try to reduce the quantity, and you try to make sure that you are really, really sharp on not making mistakes. So there's a reason that overly critical perfectionistic people can make it more rapidly to the top of ladders and things like that, because it's that kind of self-critical, I won't let myself off the hook drive that keeps the statistical curve growing. And then consistency, as far as being able to do the things that you want to do, that are within your capabilities, and you just can't consistently build a habit or something like that. It's really just about habit forming. Habit forming is pretty simple as a concept and pretty hard to do. There's hundreds of blogs out there about it that have all the tips and tricks and hacks, and the ones that I use are going to be really different from the ones that you use, but the ones that I use are, I set kind of value-driven goals in the morning. I try to structure my activities around values instead of ambitions or goals or emotions. I try to forgive myself for things that I can't do and take them off my plate and not worry about them, because it's clear that I'm not motivated enough to pull them off consistently. Next question is from Moffat. When you play more important matches, should you only focus on what's familiar or still test your limits to possibly stay more focused? Actually was talking about this with some players recently, and the question was if I'm always pushing people to train at the edge of their capabilities, what happens when you go on stage? Should we still be doing that? And I had to think about it for a little bit, and I think the answer is yes and no, because I don't want people to play in an uncalculated way where they're overly aggressive in a way. So you should play within your kind of vision of what a perfect game is and restrain yourself, but then you don't want that restraint to be passivity or reactiveness or fear of making a mistake. So there's this strange dichotomy where you have to be kind of understand what beautiful perfect play is, but then aggressive enough to kind of push yourself into a play that you're not sure you can pull off and do something wonderful. And I think that Rick Fox will tell you, and other athletes who've won championships, that what you really have to do is tap into the joy of the experience of that moment, and you have to find a way to be excited about doing something amazing. And then if your ambition is to do something amazing and really show your mastery of this craft, then you'll find that you are able to push your limits in the right way and not try to push your limits in terms of stupid aggressiveness, because your overall ambition is grandiose. And so you'll accept things like restraint that go into that as you're attempting to push yourself to take risks that you are not sure that you can pull off. And that's what leads to amazingly beautiful performances that kind of resound through time. So that's what I recommended to the players I was talking to at that time. Next question is from Bojin Kim. And the question is, some people are naturally good or bad at video games. How big of a role do our genes play in esports? Can everyone overcome this? So actually, no, people are not naturally good or bad at video games. And there are no genes that we're controlled for in our genetic upbringing in the jungles of Pangea when like tigers were running along and then like ate the people who were bad at video games, and now they're naturally selected people for video games and not video games. So that's basically complete bullshit. And how big a role do your genes play in esports? Probably little to zero. And I would say it's more about your upbringing, actually. Like your nurturing sets you up to succeed in esport or not based on how good you are at video games because of how much you've played, how well you can focus, how well you can train yourself and like be disciplined about self-improvement, how kind of in the flow you can get, how competitive you are based on your upbringing. I think, genetics plays little to no part at all. Obviously, genetics, like certain people have to overcome certain challenges, right? So, but everybody has to overcome a challenge genetically. And it's just that yours might be different than the other competitors, but you all have them. So people have genetic strengths, but they also have genetic weaknesses. And there's not people that really kind of come whole package. Like if you're tall, you're not also short. And the same is true of many other mechanisms in our body. Okay, next question is from Looming Kim on Twitter, Lumming Kim. And he or she asks, actually, she asked that question. Some people are naturally good or bad at video games. So thanks for that question. It was a good question. And if you want to know more about this, look up the book Peak. And the author is Anders Ericsson, who's one of the core researchers on talent detection and the expertise, the development of expertise of a craft, whether it be cooking or sport or like a mental sport like chess, something like that. And you will find that people have been doing research on this for 30 years, and there's mounting evidence that shows there's zero correlation to like the development of expertise and some sort of genetic predisposition for it that we have been able to find to this point. And we found a lot of evidence against it, in fact. So unless you're playing basketball, then it really pays to be taller, just a little bit. Okay, next question is from Lito Styles 1. When you have a hard day, bad sleep, etc., is it better to practice anyway and get things done or train more tomorrow? It's always better to rest and train more tomorrow. So it's usually you want to train to the full capability that you can manage in that day, and then you want to dial it back if you are not having a bad day and a low focus day, because you don't want to breed bad habits, and you want to make sure you get recovery in, and you don't want to trigger a cycle of like cascading decadence, I guess, or decay into an even worse burned out state. So like you overtrain and then you have worse sleep, and then the next day you do even worse. So just train a little bit, get as high quality training as you can until you feel yourself kind of done, and then pull the plug, go to bed. Next question is from Shrandles. When you feel tired in play, how do you reset your mind and start playing again? Here's how I do it. Caffeine, coffee. So there's a couple biochemical things you can do. You can introduce caffeine. You can make sure that you introduce sugar or glucose into your mouth. So if you eat fake sugar or fake yourself into eating it, like you chew it and then spit it out, you'll have like a bump in focus for about 20 minutes until your body realizes that you actually didn't eat anything. And then you're not going to have a rise in blood sugar and consequently like glucose delivery to your brain, and then it will go back down. But if you eat a moderate amount of like some sort of snack, you can kind of boost your attention and focus for 40 minutes or so. You can't eat too much, and you shouldn't eat straight sugar, because what that does is boost your blood glucose too high and spikes an insulin response, and then that pulls all the blood glucose out of your blood, and then your brain is like, where's all the fuel? And then caffeine helps with that. And how do you reset your mind when you feel tired? I do things like meditate. So quick episode of mindfulness. We might do that between scrims, for example, to kind of kick off the next scrim, like during a meal break or whatever. You can take a nap. 5 to 10 minute naps have been shown by research to be really effective in terms of like resetting your body a little bit. As far as resetting your mind cognitively, I mean, you can try things like self-talk where you just amp yourself up, get yourself energized again, but probably the biological mechanisms are much more powerful for that. And the amping yourself up thing is probably pretty personal. Like, it works for some people, doesn't work for some people. Maybe listening to music, like hard rap music, will help you, or it could put you to sleep. Like me, when I listen to death metal now, I just pass out, because my whole first week in Finland, I was living in a like a street home or whatever. So I was just like in a room with a ton of mattresses on the floor with like 20 other people, and they were snoring obviously and coming in like drunk at like 3, 4, or 5 in the morning and high and like walking all over people. So I just like went to the library, downloaded a bunch of like the loudest, most insane music I could. And since I was in Finland for the first time, I wanted to be cultural, so I just downloaded all the Finnish death metal and then kind of just listened to it all night. And so now when I listen to HIM and all that stuff, I just kind of like conk out. It's pretty, yeah. So that's kind of a personal thing, however you condition yourself. Next question is from Mego. What about warm-up before playing League of Legends? Yes. So the first 5 minutes of the game kind of really dependent on the 20 minutes before the game. So if you want to do a warm-up, you want to make sure that you have like a pre-preparation ritual that you use to kind of get in the right mindset. And the way you can do that is look at what you've done before your most successful games and kind of copy that because it works for you. Again, it's an individual thing. And if you don't believe in rituals, then don't do it because it won't work. That's why they work in the first place. It's because you actually believe that it's helping. And then the most important thing is that you have a really high level of testosterone going into the match, meaning that you're like going to have testosterone producing all these things like dopamine and noradrenaline, which converts to adrenaline, and the things that you need to compete. Like, it's going to preload the neurotransmitters, start crafting neurotransmitters in your brain for the competition. So whether you do that through cognitive means, like thinking like, oh, I'm going to get this, it's going to crush it, or whether you do that through like running around doing jumping jacks or whatever, just make sure that you're ready for a fight and that you're kind of energized. And that's the purpose of a warm-up in terms of League of Legends. You can also, of course, like make sure your key bindings are right, play 5 minutes on that champion and custom game to make sure you've greased the wheels in terms of your combos, etc. The first 5 minutes of a game in League of Legends are really crucial, especially at the pro level. Next question is from Fact Junior 3132, so on Twitter, FACTJR Junior, JR 3132. And they ask, how does one go about being a sports psychologist for esports? So there's 2 tracks. You can go through the psychology, so you can go to the university, study to become a therapist or a psychologist, and then like have a sports psychology specialty, and you can get licensed to treat mental disorder, and then have a focus on performance. And then you can choose to treat mental disorders or do performance or do both. Most people who are doing sports psychology don't do anything with mental illness. Even if they're qualified to treat mental illnesses or mental deficiencies, they don't. They'll just refer them because they're focused on sports psychology. The other track is through kind of the sports angle or coaching. So this is what I did. I went and I became a sports coach, and then I went and I studied sports psychology at the master's level. Psychology, not psychologist. Psychology, I learned the science of it. And then I started working with sports teams, and I started working as a coach. And when you do sports psychology, they train us essentially in diagnosis of mental disorders in order to make sure we refer people correctly to an actual therapist or psychologist when they present some sort of mental, like catalogable mental deficiency or mental illness or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it depends on your track. Track 1, where you do psychologist and then you do sports psychology as an emphasis later on, is like 4-year degree in psychology, get a master's level therapist, maybe finish your PhD. It's about 8 to 10 years of science, all on clinical stuff. Clinical psychology, clinical psychology, clinical psychology. Maybe a few courses here and there on sport. And then at the end, you're a clinical psychologist. And you can also do sport. For me, that's a massive effing waste of time. So I don't really give a crap about clinical psychology at all. And so I focused... I didn't even know about that. First of all, I studied math and English. So then I essentially took the other track where I was from the sports side, and I really wanted to know more about what I was doing to these kids' brains or adults' brains as I was coaching them. So I went and studied sports psychology. And I started working from that angle. That was just like 2 years as a master's. And I had to have psychological studies before that at the basic level to kind of get in there. And then for my license afterwards, I have to do follow-up. I have to have like a basis of psychological study that is outside of sports psychology. And then I have to have like 400 or so odd supervised hours of work that is kind of supervised by a licensed sports psychologist. And that's like a practical training period. So that's kind of how that works. And you do that by just going to a university that is qualified in handing out those degrees. Next question is from AKA The Mystery on Twitter. What are possible reasons why some people can't carry over all or most of their knowledge into a game, excluding mechanical stuff? The reason is because everything is mechanical. So I just played 2 games on stream with new key bindings, moving my fingers. And so when I got jumped by Kindred, I hit Alt-3 instead of Alt-E because my hand automatically processed the visual stimuli and decided I wanted to like tap Alt-E and self-shield myself. So that's what I did, except my hand was in a different position. So everything that you train as far as a reaction in League of Legends is not like a decision-making matrix as much as it is a visual representation that you process and then make a kind of a gut decision from, and that translates into a motor reflex. So the reason you can't carry over knowledge into game is because they're 2 different things. You can have a vast knowledge of the game and then not be able to do anything, because like I can have vast knowledge of how I should shoot archery, and then I can stand up there and like I would suck at it because archery is not a mental, like it's like telekinesis, right? You actually have to have the muscles coordinated to do it. And it's the same thing in League of Legends. It's not any different from shooting a gun. Like I know that you like hold like this. I've seen it in the movies, and you pull the trigger, and like that doesn't help me do it at all, and doesn't help me do it at any speed. So that's all motor training, and that's what League is, motor training. Made Pro, Mayder Pro on Twitter asks, hello, do you have any advice on how to gain and keep confidence? Yes, confidence is mostly based on competence, C-O-M-P-etence. So if you believe that you can do it and you've tested it and then you have verifiable truth and evidence that shows like, oh yeah, I thought I could do this, and so I went and tried it and then I could do it, great, I have competence, then your confidence grows. And if you don't have any competence or a sense of your own competence, then your confidence will depreciate or be non-existent. So I recommend to everybody that wants to build confidence to build competence first. It's like, how do I build confidence to go out and stand on stage and give a speech like I do? People asked me this when I was a speaker. I stood speaking. And I was like, well, I stood out on stage and I did it and I sucked at it. So I practiced it and took classes in it, got better at it, went up, realized I was better, videotaped myself, critiqued myself, got better, videotaped myself. Then I had competence, compared myself to other people who were good at it, saw that I was at this level. Now I'm confident when I go out on stage that I can deliver the message that I want to deliver. So that's kind of how I would recommend building confidence, because then it's real. Some people try to build confidence without any competence at what they're doing. And I think that's hilarious, because I'm like, why would you want confidence at being bad at something or doing something that you're bad at? Like, why not just get good at it and then you don't need to worry about your confidence because you can just do it. Unless you mean confidence that like, are you going to fail at something? But that's really just fear of failure. That's like not really confidence. So that's like you have to master your fear of failure. And that's there every single time you make the attempt. So that doesn't really have to do with confidence. That has more to do with getting used to that kind of understanding of what failure means, and that it's okay to be afraid of, but that has no bearing on what you actually want to do with your actions that you can control. That's about it for episode 78 of the Ask Weldon show. I have more questions. I'm trying to get through a backlog, but I'm just going to say good night, and I'll see you in the next episode. Make sure that you follow me on Snapchat. You can see the address, Mind Games Weldon. I give updates every morning of just like what's going on when I can, and answer as many questions as I can. Just send me a hello on Snapchat, and I try to read them when I have free time and just kind of get through them, but apologies if I don't get to them right away.